The Price Academy, bite-sized history videos. This video is introducing Bess of Hardwick, the wealthy Tudor widow. Bess of Hardwick married her way into wealth and became the second most wealthiest woman after Queen Elizabeth. She is considered a thorn in the side of both Elizabeth and Mary Queen of Scots. On the 4th of October 1597, Bess of Hardwick took up residence in her newly built home in Derbyshire, close to the town of Chesterfield. She was 70 years old when Bess moved into Hardwick Hall, which was so impressive it rivaled the Queen's palaces in scale and magnificence. Hardwick Hall was built with 3 stories, each one taller than the one before it. There are so many windows in Hardwick Hall that inspired the rhyme, Hardwick Hall, more glass than wall. The most striking feature, as you can see here, are the initials ES on top of the 6 towers. Hardwick Hall was built just a stone throw away from Bess's childhood home, which was a deliberate statement of her wealth and power. Bess's story is one from humble beginnings to dizzying heights well beyond the reach of most Tudor women. Born in around 1527, Bess was one of 5 children. Her father, John Hardwick, came from a moderately rich Derbyshire family, but he died just a year after Bess's birth. A significant portion of his estate was seized by the Crown until his son and heir came of age. Bess decided that she should find a husband. At age 16, she married for the first time to Robert Barlow, who was also from Derbyshire. The union was short-lived as he sadly died in 1544. Bess soon lined up her second husband, which allowed her to climb the social ladder. Sir William Cavendish was the treasurer of Henry VIII and also one of Thomas Cromwell's henchmen. He was 20 years older than Bess and already had 2 children. The couple had a happy marriage by all accounts and had 8 children together, 3 of whom were sons. Her decision was correct, as William died in 1557, and by the time Elizabeth Tudor became Queen in 1558, Bess had married for the 3rd time to Sir William St. Lo. In June 1549, Bess's husband bought the estate at Chatsworth. The couple embarked on an ambitious project of rebuilding and filling the house with luxury furnishings. Bess was shrewd and made sure that all the properties were in joint name. Bess secured a place in the royal household aged 31 due to her new husband's connections. She became the gentlewoman of the Privy Chamber. In the summer of 1561, Bess became embroiled in a scandal involving Catherine Grey, who was the sister of Lady Jane Grey. Catherine was a potential rival and heir to Elizabeth's throne, and had secretly married Edward Seymour, a nephew of Jane Seymour, and was pregnant with his child. Catherine was a member of Elizabeth's household, and one night decided to confess everything to Bess. Bess was furious with Catherine and her foolishness, but both were arrested by the Queen and placed in the Tower of London to be interrogated under charges of conspiracy to oust Elizabeth from her throne. Bess stayed in the Tower for a few months and was dismissed from the Privy Chamber and sent back to Derbyshire in disgrace. During the next 3 years, her 3rd husband died, and she remarried for the 4th and final time to George Talbot, the Earl of Shrewsbury. George Talbot was one of the richest men in the kingdom, and in 1568 Queen Elizabeth decided that he should be the keeper of her most deadly rival, Mary Queen of Scots, upon her flight into England. This was a heavy burden on him and his wife, but it was also a way for Bess to try and win the Queen's forgiveness for the Catherine Grey scandal. Another scandal brewed in 1574, this time involving the niece of Henry VIII and cousin to the Queen, Margaret Douglas. Bess had arranged a marriage between her daughter Elizabeth Cavendish to Margaret's son Charles Stuart. This was against the Queen's instructions. Margaret Douglas was thrown into the Tower when she learnt the news of the union, and Bess and her daughter were placed under armed guards at Rufford in Nottinghamshire. The Queen's anger grew when she found out that Elizabeth Cavendish was pregnant, as any child from the union would be a distant claim to the throne. Arabella Stuart was born in 1575 and would become the focus of Bess's dynastic ambitions for years to come. Bess's ambitions for her granddaughter, one day to wear the crown, would put her guest under house arrest, Mary Queen of Scots, in a foul mood. Mary wanted her own son, James, to be the next monarch, and this made the two fall out with each other. So much so that when Bess separated from her fourth husband, she accused Mary of sleeping with him. The situation was resolved with the execution of Mary in February 1587, although Bess and her husband George now lived estranged lives from each other. Bess moved on to her project of renovating her old family home after buying the lands from her brother. When her husband died 3 years later, she inherited a third of his disposable lands and decided to build a new hall right next to her old one. Bess spent a lot of her energies now in promoting her granddaughter Arabella Stuart, who she raised after the death of her daughter in 1582. However, Arabella had her own mind and decided to marry the grandson of Edward Seymour, who was the cause of the scandal all those years ago with Catherine Grey. The Queen was furious again and thought Arabella was plotting to seize the throne. Luckily, this time the Queen believed that Bess had nothing to do with the scandal, and Bess eventually outlived Elizabeth by 5 years, dying on the 13th of February 1608. Bess lived through 6 reigns and 4 husbands, and became the second most wealthiest woman in the country due to her shrewdness and determination. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, to like and subscribe to the channel, or you can follow me at Facebook or at Twitter at TanyaRelics38.